parties and a lot of things, and you're their representatives. And I think people here need to be sure that our candidate is willing to work with the communities to make our nation better. I've always believed that you can't really control anything besides that you're most involved in, and our communities are that. Now, crux, and we'll get additional questions. So the whole argument that we have across the nation has to do with how we're going to fix the problem. This question, our Congress will not make the hard cuts to get spending under control. What entitlement spending would you cut to balance the budget? Now, I'm going to use that as a text for where we move forward with these additional questions. The point is that we're going to have a great debate in Washington about how we're going to balance the books. Same debate folks in Brunswick County and Johnston County and all through the 7th District. We'll talk about tonight with your wife and your family and your business partners. And at this point in time, we've not had much success in being able to talk to each other in Washington. And we've not had very little success. The Senate doesn't even propose a budget. So the question comes to be, how are we going to get there? Mr. Larry, I'll put the question to you first. How are we going to get from where we're at to a path of this country pulling together to bring ourselves out of this?
Mr. Mayor, it starts with 2 words to our current president. Those 2 words are "you're fired." Then from there, we make sure that we have a strong conservative majority in the Congress and a strong conservative majority in the Senate, so we can start undoing the last 4 years of the encroachment of socialism that I think none of us probably thought we would see in our lifetime happen in a more accelerated way in the last 3 years. That is probably the reason that half of you, being political newcomers, even got involved in the political process to begin with, and I count myself amongst you. So specifically, I've talked about the Republican budget that's been proposed, and again, I'm the only candidate on the stage that's actually openly supported and put my name behind the Paul Ryan plan. Why does that matter? Because when you stand for something, friends, you get attacked. I had $2.5 million of attack ads run against me, with the Democrats quoting meta-scare techniques and all of the things that they did, even against Ronald Reagan. In fact, Michael Reagan had to come and do radio commercials to defend our campaign because these were the same attacks that they've been leveling at Republicans for 30 years. So the demagoguery isn't limited to a specific point in time, but specifically the reason that I support this budget plan, I want to talk about it. It makes some painful choices for us. Because you know what? The easy choices have been made already. Career politicians have punted the hard choices for a very long time. So now we have to deal with the fact that by 2045, every single dollar of government revenue, every single tax dollar is going to go to pay to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And if we're not honest in how we reform those, starting with, for example, with Social Security, telling my young friends, and there are a couple of them in the room tonight, in fact, one who's 21 years old, raise your hand in the back. My friend, we're going to have to change the retirement age for you. If you're 55 and older, friends, your benefits are going to be protected. But if you're 55 and younger, we're going to have to start inching the retirement age up. Friends, Social Security is a third rail in politics. Do you know the reason that people don't take positions on it? Because it's scary. But it's time for some courage, and it's time for some committed leadership, and that's what I'm going to bring to the table. Thank you.
We all know, of course, we've got to get conservatives elected to the White House, to the U.S. House, and take control again of the U.S. Senate. And no question about that. If we don't, we're not going to get this country on the right path again. But we also have to understand how we got where we are. You know, government is the problem, not the solution. If you look at the 3 biggest problem areas we have in this country, healthcare, education, and energy, you know what they all had 3 have in common? Common denominator is you got more government involvement in those 3 areas than any other. We have to realize that we've got to get the government out of the way so that businesses can thrive again. We've got to grow our economy. And we do that by cutting taxes, reforming the tax code so that it's fair, flat, and simple. Regulatory reform, repealing Obamacare, and of course energy policy. We need to be tapping into every single possible resource we have in this country, and energy will help create jobs. And then we've got to have the courage to cut spending, including entitlement spending. And there's absolutely no question we have to reform those programs so that we can preserve them for the future.
Mr. Crow.
Thank you. I've been running for political office since I think 1997, and I've been owner financed all the time that I've done this. And I have noticed that every year there's more money in politics. You've got things that are coming in here. I know my fellow opponents here, there's going to be at least $850,000 spent on this particular campaign. I don't think that money in politics is helping anything. As far as I'm concerned, when you when I get my salary, you don't owe anything. I'm going to do what you tell me to do, and there's not going to be any need to give contributions. I think that's one of the biggest problems. If you want to know who's really riding in the wagon, it's the banksters. We're paying them $400 billion a year straight off the board. And I'll tell you another thing, Social Security, when they call that a tax cut, that is crazy. We have taken 2% out of it, it's $240 billion. That's a bad idea. Thank you.
Next question is to Senator Rouser. What real experience do you have in cutting spending?
Significant. I'm the only candidate in this race, and one of the few probably running across the country, that's actually helped craft a budget and cut spending, and voted to cut more than $1 billion out of the state budget. You know, as I said earlier, we did remarkable things this last legislative session. We balanced the books without raising taxes. We took the hard hits and we cut the spending. And if you think folks aren't upset about cutting spending, just take a look at my Facebook page. You know, it takes courage. It takes political will. That's one thing that I bring to the table in this race. I've been through the fire. I've been through the political battles. I've been through the legislative battles. And I know how to say no. And the record proves it.
Mr. Crow.
Well, I've never saved any taxpayer money. I have, I tell you, you know, the whole thing about taxing people and saving them money and all that, that's kind of crazy for me. I started out in Texas. We had a ranch. I was ranch manager there. You talk about cutting money. I watched every penny that there ever was on there. We raised cattle. We raised all kinds of different animals and things, and it was hard to make it. I was in the gasoline business. We had, I don't know, about 100, 110 employees. We had to watch every penny. All I've done for 45 years is cut expenses and live as inexpensively as possible as a member of small businesses. So, no, I haven't gone where Santa Claus gives a whole bunch of money and we're going to save you a little bit here and there. No, my life has been saving money in the private sector, and I believe I can take it to Washington and really save some money.
Well, I'd like to point to my experience in the private sector. I don't have, to my opponent's credit, 20 years of service in the government, and I appreciate the time and the effort that he made over various administrations and working in various staff offices, the efforts that he's made to serve the public, and I think that that's an honorable thing. But I'm not sure that 20 years of the same is going to get us a new result. In fact, I think that's actually the insanity, the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Frankly, I think it's time for some private sector experience. I've worked in the investment banking and the commodity trading world. And then I started a private consulting business where I consulted with clients like AT&T, Sony, and Mattel, the makers of Barbie dolls. So I've worked with different types of businesses that have had different needs, but real private sector timelines and budgetary constraints. And I think that that's very important and applicable. Number one, I would go on to say, we have seen that career politics